Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Performance Plus webinar by MNC Saatchi Performance. Today, we're talking about what's new in programmatic, and more importantly, what actually matters. Because yes, programmatic is changing fast, and AI is taking on more of the heavy lifting, from bidding and pacing to optimizations and creative testing. So in many ways, we're moving closer to autopilot, which sounds great until you remember that even the smartest autopilot still needs a clear destination, good signals, and someone experienced in the cockpit who knows when to take control. And that's really what today's conversation is about, the path to human supervised autopilot, how marketers can let automation do what it does best, while keeping strategy, judgment, measurement, and guardrails firmly in human hands. We'll look at what this shift means for app growth and how roles are evolving, also what signals we should trust, and where human intervention still makes all the difference. And to help us get into all of that, we have a brilliant panel joining us today. But before we begin, there are some house sharing rules I'd like to share today for our webinar. This is an informal education session aimed at providing expert insight. So please ask questions using the Q&A feature of this webinar, and we will answer them at the end. The session is also being recorded and will be sent after this event. And the recording will also be available on our website at mcsaatchiperformance.com. The audience will be on mute for this session, and we will be running polls throughout this webinar. It will be great to get your thoughts as well. So moving on. So before we meet our speakers today, let me introduce the agency. So MNC Saatchi Performance is a leading global performance marketing agency. We started back in 2006, initially focusing on mobile and have since expanded to help brands thrive in the digital landscape. We have a heritage in growing brands and can tailor our services depending on what each client requires. And introducing myself, my name is DA. I'm the Managing Director at Find Media, which is part of the MNC Saatchi Group. And I lead the agency's global programmatic solutions for our clients, helping them maximize their investment across the open internet. I've been with the agency for 12 years and also been in the programmatic space for more than 18 years. Now, to help us make sense of what human supervised autopilot really looks like in programmatic, I'm very excited to welcome our panelists for today. First, we have Rona Enid, the Senior Product Manager at AppsFlyer. Rona brings deep expertise in measurement, attribution, and the signals marketers need to make smarter growth decisions in a privacy-first world. So welcome, Rona. Please, would you like to introduce yourself and share a fun fact about yourself?
Yes. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Rona, Senior Product Manager at AppsFlyer. What I do at AppsFlyer really sits at the intersection of data and AI. I lead product for Agent Hub, which is our platform for deploying AI agents that analyze performance data and push actionable insights directly into the marketer's day-to-day workflows. In addition to that, I own data export products, which also includes Data Locker, which I really see in the context of AI is really the foundation layer. It's what makes AI really trustworthy. Fun fact, I think I've spent more time thinking about what marketers shouldn't have to do manually than almost anything else in my day-to-day. So today's topic is really exciting and interesting for me.
Great. Thanks, Rona. And we also have Alexei Molchan, the VP of Product at Dataseat, now part of Verve. Alexei has been right at the heart of how programmatic is evolving for mobile app growth, and especially when it comes to supply quality, automations, and building systems that can scale without losing control. So welcome, Alexei. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and also share a fun fact?
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here, DA. So I'm Alexei. I'm leading product end-to-end at a privacy-first contextual DSP Dataseat, which is part of Verve Group. We work with brands and the agencies, and we help with all things app growth. And, AI and machine learning are at the core of our performance engine. So this conversation about, moving to the human supervised autopilot is very exciting to me. And the fun fact about me is that long ago, I've started my career in sales, and there I've learned that, it's hard to sell products which doesn't solve actual customer problems. So this led me to pivot into product management, to be at the forefront of building the products that customers actually need and would love. So excited for this conversation.
All right. Thank you both again so much for joining. Really excited to have you here. I think this is going to be an exciting and very useful conversation because we're here to get practical. We'll be discussing what is actually changing in the programmatic and what marketers should trust, what still needs human judgment, and how we do it, make sure the autopilot is helping us grow, not just moving fast. So with that, let's get into it. So today, we will be looking at the changing role of the marketer. We will be, looking at what better measurement really means, what data quality is becoming harder to, or why data quality is becoming harder to ignore, and also will be, how sustainable app growth is being shaped for the years ahead. So these are some of the key topics we'll be diving into. So starting off with our first question of the day. So when programmatic goes hands off, what will humans still need to own? So our first question of the day would be, what parts of campaign management are already effectively hands off and which are still traditionally manual? Alexei, do you want to take this first question?
Yeah, I'm glad to. So when you think about it, about running the app growth campaigns, a lot of executional campaign management is already close to hands off, right? When it comes to bids, adjustment, pacing, budget rebalance, and shifts, expanding the audience, rotating the creatives, alerts, optimization towards predefined events. Basically, platforms and AI is really good at taking a certain goal and managing the tactical events around it, executing against that goal. However, what is still manual, or better put, very human-led, is everything around the quality of that goal and signal. So whether to choose the right KPI, decide, which in-app event actually representing long-term value, setting up measurement correctly, interpreting different methodologies for measurement, being it scan or MMP events or incrementality and even MMM signals, and really making a judgment whether this performance is incremental, and deciding also when the system should be learning and towards which kind of proxy should it be optimizing. That is still human-led and is going to remain like that for the time being.
Great, thanks for that, Alexei. Rona, your thoughts on this? Do you see it the same way?
I think I'd build on what Alexei said and add the measurement angle from our end, because I think that's where the real tension is. So on the execution side, as Alexei said, a lot is already automated. The bidding, the pacing. Platforms are genuinely good at optimizing towards a goal that you've defined. The part that's still very human, and probably for good reason at the moment, is the quality of the signal feeding those systems. So choosing the right in-app event to optimize towards, deciding whether the performance you're seeing is actually incremental. Those aren't automation problems, they're real judgment calls. And there's a risk that if you get them wrong, you're not just wasting a campaign, you're training your AI on the wrong signals, and that scales. So at AppsFlyer, we really, when we think about this, we define it as the difference between automating execution and automating the direction. Execution, largely already ready. Direction still needs a human who understands what growth actually means for their business.
Great, thanks, Rona. So I guess the key takeaway is that operationally, AI is already in place, but helping streamline the workflow, but the strategy and data will still remain more of a human direction for now. Great. So that staying on that topic, I think the key question will be how does the KPI decide AI adoption? And so I'm curious to know how will clients and marketing and the campaign KPIs decisions dictate how we adopt AI into the workflow, automation versus results. So Alexei, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say no marketer should start with what we can automate, but rather start with what outcome we're trying to improve and what problem I'm trying to solve. So in that sense, the client KPI has to determine where AI sits in the workflow. If KPIs are relatively simple, like installs, cost per install, AI can automate a lot of the execution around the tactical events optimization, like bids, budget, as mentioned, pacing, and so on, inventory selection. But when it comes to KPIs where which are very down the funnel and very complex, like retention, subscription, LTV, purchase quality, then the workflow has to be built around signals and longer feedback loops, and basically that is not what AI can fully embrace for now, and human judgment is needed basically to give direction on what the model should or AI should learn from. And in that sense, I wouldn't probably frame that automation versus the results, because automation is means to achieve the results, right? So if it's pointed towards the right result, it can become very efficient in optimizing things. But if it's pointed towards the wrong proxy, wrong signal, then we can automate a lot of things, but in the end, they will lead to the bad result. So it's the marketer's role to define those KPIs and connect the right measurement points for the AI, to learn and have the freedom to act within these constraints which are being set by the marketer.
All right, thanks. Really helpful. Thanks, Alexei. So this leads us to our first poll of today for the audience. And it is, where is your programmatic activity losing the most value today? So yes, please, audience, it would be great to hear your thoughts on this. We'll give it a few more seconds for everyone. Any more? Okay. If you look at the results, it's very much the it's kind of mixed results, but we've got of course, the key ones here. Looks like optimizing towards proxy KPIs instead of business outcomes. And again, fragmented measurement and creative fatigue. So I think these are great outputs, because these are some of the topics we'll be discussing in this webinar today. So great, yeah. So let's go in to that. So moving on to that side, the changing role of the marketer. So this, I would say, is the new way of looking at it. So as AI takes on more of the manual work in campaign management, the marketer's role will evolve. The quick question is, now becomes is that where should human judgment make the biggest difference? And there are two skills that become more valuable now. The first one being prioritization becomes critical, knowing where to invest and what to ignore, and which signals are reliable rather than just noise. In the programmatic space, that means understanding which metrics matter the most, whether it's the long-term value, such as lifetime value, or a short-term goal, such as the CPI or the CPA. The second part, it also makes interpretation more important, turning data into decisions clients can trust, and that genuinely supports their business goals. AI will optimize whatever it is asked to optimize. The real skill for marketers will be deciding what is actually worth optimizing. Which leads us onto our next question for you, Alexei, and that would be, where should marketers draw the line between AI assistance and AI decision-making?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would draw the line around risk and reversibility. AI is very good at taking decisions which happen for the events which happen at really high frequency and can be corrected quickly, which no human being can match, like adjusting beats, spacing, exploration of publishers, budget rebalance, and creative rotation. These are the areas where models and AI can really process a lot of signals in a very short time frame and make a very good judgment and decision. And yeah, never a human can match these. But at the same time, the decisions which shape the direction of the campaign, the goals, what outcome to optimize towards, how much risk to take, apply some human intelligence and intuition. Such as maybe there is some supply that should be whitelisted or blocked. What creatives are more appropriate, and whether the performance is really genuinely creating the business value. This is where the human should be in the decision maker, and AI should be an assistant there. So because those things require context just beyond the knowledge of the data in the platform, which typically AI has access to. So the principle should be simple: give AI autonomy in low risk areas where automation is really helping to kind of drive efficiency, but keep the humans responsible for strategy, constraints, bigger trade-offs, all the risky decisions which only human judgment can resolve.
Great, thanks, Alexei. Let's build on that. The next question for you, Rona, and where do you see the line between AI managing the programmatic engine and AI overstepping, making decision marketers should still own?
I think similar to Alexei, I think the honest answer from my end is that there isn't a fixed line. It will move, and it moves for each individual also as trust builds with AI. So right now, there are lots of categories of decisions where AI could and should take over. So monitoring KPIs continuously, flagging anomalies, doing root cause analysis, surfacing creative fatigue, and routing all of those insights to the right person at the right time on your team. These are high frequency, data heavy tasks where humans are genuinely the bottleneck today. So automating them doesn't really reduce your control. It actually frees up your attention to focus on other things that really require your attention and your judgment. So where it gets complicated, I think, is when AI starts to make calls that have irreversible consequences or that embed assumptions that marketers haven't explicitly approved. Budget reallocation at scale, frequent goal updates, killing a creative line, shifting channel mix, those really need human in the loop. Not because AI can't compute the answer, but just because someone needs to be accountable for it. It still matters. If the decision is wrong, someone needs to own it. It's a big decision. So the way we've designed Agent Hub in AppsFlyer really reflects this exact approach. agents detect, analyze, surface, they recommend. They can also take action, but only if you've explicitly authorized it in advance. They don't overstep the boundaries that you've set. The goal is supervised autopilot, so automation that earns more autonomy over time as the marketer builds trust with the agent and what's it doing and why and how it's doing it.
Thanks for the insights there. So the key takeaway here is that having a supervised autopilot and only giving more autonomy once the marketer has more confidence in its decision making, which will come over time. So thanks for that. So moving on to our next section, which I believe, now we come to what is often the more exciting part of any conversation, is the creative, and especially Gen AI creative. So we all can agree that AI can now produce thousands of creative variations in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost it once required. This creates a huge opportunity, but also a risk as well. We may start optimizing for the volume rather than the value. If AI creates more assets, we may run more tests and generate more outputs. But by doing this, are we actually learning anything meaningful from this creation? So I feel that in a world of near infinite creative output, the real differentiator is knowing what good looks like, which takes us to our next question for Alexei. In your opinion, what does good creative mean when machines are generating hundreds of variants?
Yeah, that's a great question. Especially, I mean, in the rise of AI, indeed, we can generate a lot of creative variants, and there is a risk of prioritizing quantity over quality. So the values, shifts from just an individual asset as a creative into, in turns creative into a signal. So the important question is, what does creative feed back into the learning of algorithm? And more importantly, it's crucial to understand not only that creative works, but to understand that it doesn't work in isolation, because you need to understand why does a creative work, right? So people need to focus on what, context creative work in, what format, what message works better, and be predictor of that quality, and how can that be fed into the machine learning. In that sense, creative becomes like part of the model learning loop, so that AI takes the learnings on why creatives work and then scales them accordingly, as opposed to just producing variants. So simply put, marketers should think more thoroughly about creative strategy. So there should be hypotheses behind each variant, not just let's produce thousands of variants with just slightly different color CTA, but putting thoughts behind why do we think this will work better, and how do we think it's going to impact the goals, whether it's increase the stickiness or increase the users who will be attracted to the brand to generate a longer term value. And basically Gen AI, AI in general can help surface more of the testing capabilities, but humans need to decide why we're testing those variants and what variants need to be produced and what the system learns from it. So to answer the question in one sentence, what is a good creative? It's essentially creative that connects the product or the brand which is being advertised within the specific context, and acts as a predictor of the user lifetime value quality.
Great, really interesting points, Alexei. Ronnie, I would also love to hear your thoughts on this too.
Yeah. So I'll add something again from the measurement, the data side, and also from our experience building agents as part of Agent Hub. because I think this is where it really gets the conversation gets interesting. So the challenge we kept hearing when we were talking with our clients about where could agents help you? Where could AI come into your workflows? So we kept hearing that it wasn't really the ideation, it was actually signals. So they're running hundreds of variants of creatives on platforms and partners at scale, and you generally don't know like which ones are fatiguing or are going to fatigue, which still have runway, when to refresh them before the performance drops, or whether you're maximizing reach across all partners, right? Did you actually configure all your good creatives everywhere? By the time the data actually tells you, or you get to that task of looking into it, you've already lost budget or burned the creative, lost the opportunity. So we built that creative opportunity spotter, which is an agent on our agent hub. And out of that problem specifically, what made the experience meaningful is that we didn't design it in isolation. We co-designed it with a gaming studio, with their UA team. It was really built on the logic that they were using, that they were actually doing manually every so frequently. So the agent continuously monitors creative performance signals, flags fatigue and also opportunities, and delivers it in push to the marketers, right? So they don't have to proactively go and search for it. So it doesn't decide for them, but it really removes that analytical lag between having the good instincts and being able to actually act on them. Specifically for that UA team, this was a task that they knew mattered, but they kept doing it infrequently because the overhead was way too high. And every time they put it off and they lost a chance to scale high-performing creatives, the agent closed that gap. So it was improved their efficiency, their performance, and freed up their time to focus on other tasks that really required their attention. So if to answer it directly, a good creative in a world of infinite variance is creative that's actually connected to reliable signals. Gen AI can generate huge volumes of creative, and the agents can help you know what's actually working, where, and scale it.
Great. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate that, Rona. So we're moving on to our second poll for the audience. And the question is, what would give you confidence to invest more in programmatic? So let's give it a few seconds. Just wait a few more seconds for everyone to complete the votes. Okay, so we have some of the results come in, and it's quite a clear winner here. Most of you would like to see stronger proof of incrementality from the programmatic channel. And then, of course, we've got various votes around better visibility into supply, better link between media and LTV and ROAS. So yeah, these are some great points, and I think these our next section will be leading into, which is the measurement piece and the data quality to help address some of these points that you guys are looking forward to. So moving on to our measurement section of the day. So moving on to measurement, so which has, I guess, always been one of the biggest discussion points in the programmatic space, and how do we define what is truly valuable? So the answer often depends on the stakeholder. Some teams focus on the short-term KPIs, such as the cost per install or cost per acquisition, while others care more about the longer-term outcomes, such as the ROAS or the lifetime value and retention. If we have not clearly defined the right measurement or measure of success, then the question is, can AI really help us achieve it? For me, this is one of the central themes of today's discussion, but also everyday discussions we have with clients, is that AI can interpret and act on the data we give it, but it does not automatically provide the right strategic direction. If we feed it a short-term performance signal, such as, let's say, the CPI, and we expect it to optimize for the long-term value, the model will not solve that gap for us. So I believe that if the measurement methodology or the data quality is flawed, AI will not just make mistakes, it will scale them. So the risk is ending up with a perfectly optimized, inefficient campaign at scale. So this leads on to our question for Alexi. What are your thoughts on measurement and how critical first-party data is in an increasingly automated ecosystem?
Well, first-party data, I would say it always gave a competitive edge to those who have it in those brands who own it. That being said, not every brand, depending on their stage in the life cycle, has vast amounts of first-party data. But if a brand has first-party data, and it's, in the current age of AI, it becomes very critical because it can give the automation a stronger signal to learn from. From my experience and at Dataseat, in privacy-first environments, we often have to work, and our old models and AI often has to work with delayed events, aggregated events, incomplete feedback loop. So we have to model based on incomplete signals, and the data which a brand owns, which they can share in a privacy-first manner, events, retention data, purchase quality, LTV, any kind of signals, that becomes a really good signal and the clearest way to tell our system and our models, what valuable growth actually looks like. But again, it only helps if this first-party data is connected to the right KPI and is connected to the right optimization value, because as you mentioned, AI can optimize very quickly, but in the wrong direction if it's given incorrect data. So first-party data make sure the steering wheel is pointed into the right direction, and AI can rapidly move, into that area.
Right. So that's really helpful perspective. Thanks, Alexis. So what I'm hearing is that the success here really comes down to the data quality. I guess this will be the main competitive advantage going forward. It's interesting because everyone has access to the same DSPs, the same algorithms, and infinite creative. The quality of the data and measurement methodology that the tools are fed will be the differentiator. So I guess to use an example, the data we have is, let's say, CPI or CPA, but the client cares more about the lifetime value and the ROAS and retention. Then this data, the question is this data suitable or even should be automated as it doesn't address the client's end goal? Also, if we look at the quality of the data and measurement requirements, will last click models still be viable in an AI optimized world? So for example, like AI cannot magically make last click attribution work if majority of the conversions are still tracked that are not click based. So staying on this topic, Rona, I'd love to get your take on this as well. So what's the role of data quality in all of this? If the underlying measurement is broken, what happens to the agents running on top of it?
Yeah, big question, very important question, big role. So it's really the question I care most about in the whole conversation. The short answer is that Agents are amplifiers. They amplify everything that you give them. So they can make great data faster and more actionable, but if you give them bad data, they will make it wrong faster and at scale. So if you're feeding your agents incomplete attribution data, misconfigured events, a KPI that doesn't really reflect your business value, the agent will optimize towards that perfectly. So you really got a precisely executed mistake delivered automatically into your workflow faster than anyone on your team can do it. This is why we think about Data Locker as a strategic infrastructure. It's not a backend product that just pushes data into your system, raw data. It really turns the raw AppsFlyer measurement data into a foundation that's normalized, privacy safe, consistently structured, so that when you use the data, the agents running on that data, they're not guessing. They're working from a data layer that's been designed for them specifically. So it's AI ready from the start. The programmatic teams that are going to win with AI and with agents aren't just the ones that are deploying AI solutions. They're also the ones who invested first and foremost in the data foundation, because that's the part that really determines everything and the quality of the output and how your workflows are going to excel or not.
All right, thanks for really interesting points here. So yeah, let's build on that with our next question, and moving on to our next section. So question for you, Alexi, what are the biggest growth levers that AI still cannot solve?
I would say, the biggest levers AI cannot solve are usually the ones outside of, the bidding optimization measurement and engine, right? So AI can automate the workflows, it can optimize, bids, reallocate the budget, explore supply, and so on. But we often forget that if the product itself has a weak value proposition, AI cannot fix that, right? If people are not attracted to the product, no matter how many ads you show them and how efficient those ads are and how good the prediction is, it won't fix the things as well. If let's say an app has a poor onboarding where people just drop off at a certain stage, if there is an unclear unit economics and monetization in the app, AI won't fix that, because that's still designed by humans. So all the steps which involve creating an app and promoting it and representing brand value, these are the things which AI cannot influence at the moment, and this is like the strategy humans put behind it. So if the app does not retain users, or if there is a leaky bucket, AI might help to expose that problem faster, because it will help to acquire new users, and it will be clear from the data that people are dropping off. So AI cannot solve it, by itself, and but it can also surface this. Another area I would say where AI still doesn't have a growth lever is the commercial judgment. So growth teams need to decide the trade-offs, how much they're willing to pay for scale, if they want to scale fast, where to make certain investment, where they should protect efficiency, where they can be a little bit more risky in testing, how much uncertainty are they willing to accept based on past experiences, or on their growth strategy, and what kind of users the business actually want. How growth marketers want to attract the users, either scale fast or scale, more sustainably with a higher LTV. AI, and especially AI agents, can now have the context to choose the right, let's say, the right actions. And we have some agents at Dataseat which help to basically explore the supply, which would represent certain user groups which are valuable to let's say to the brand. But at the same time, the brand, the growth marketer representing the brand, they need to decide which users they want to attract, and that is the lever that they have and not the AI has.
All right, thanks for the insight, Alexi, and that links nicely over to you, Rona. What should advertisers and brands be investing in today to stay competitive tomorrow?
Yeah, I think I can link it to what we discussed previously, that first and foremost, I really want to emphasize the data foundation. So before agents, before LLM, before anything that you can do over your data, make sure your measurement layer is clean, governed, and AI ready. This means metadata, right? Adding data about your data, making sure that fields are clear, that everything is clearly interpreted. Everything else really sits on top of that. So if that foundation is shaky, your AI investments will just surface issues and not be accurate, and it will just be more difficult for them, right? It's like a new employee going into your data and trying to make sense of it. If it doesn't make sense, even to a human, it won't make sense to any agent. Second, the operating model. So a lot of teams are buying AI tools or deploying agents, and then they realize that they don't really have a clear answer on who owns this, who reviews what the agent flagged, who decides when to automate further. And maybe most importantly, in my opinion, from my experience talking with teams, which of the repetitive things that my team does every day can I actually scope out and hand to an agent? I thought it was going to be actually the easiest part. It sounds easy, but it's where we found with clients the most difficulty, identifying the areas where AI can genuinely take over and integrate them into your workflows in a way that makes the team more efficient, not just adding noise that's harder than people, that area is just harder to articulate. So building that internal clarity now will, while the stakes are lower, is what actually separates a team that can scale AI well from a team that will just get burned by it. And lastly, I think I'll mention investing in learning how to set goals for a system. So not just how to operate the tools that do AI, but the marketers who really thrive over the next few years will be the ones who are really good at defining what winning looks like for them precisely, enough so that an agent can be trusted to work towards it. It's a new skill, and all of this is things that you should go practice right now. That's from my side.
All right, thanks, Rona. So I guess the saying goes, if a same task is repeated 3 times or more, should be automated using AI. That's the goal for everyone. But Alexia, again, what are your thoughts on this? Do you see it the same way?
I definitely agree with Rona on importance of data foundation, goal setting, process governance. These are all the key components of the AI strategy. I would expand a little bit on the data foundation. So at least from the programmatic buying perspective, brands should really invest in the quality of inputs AI makes decisions from, and as we all know, AI models are really as good as only as the data which feeds into them. So garbage in, garbage out. So brands need to invest into good process descriptions, but also privacy-safe contextual signals, transparent supply paths, and this really mapping the user journey, understanding where the buying is happening, getting more visibility into the supply, like app source, creative data, context level performance data, and storing it in a very kind of clean way to make sure AI can really learn on that good data foundation. So the brands which will remain competitive and will get the competitive edge are not just the ones using more AI in day-to-day work. While I definitely agree, repetitive tasks need to be automated, but it's not only about using AI; it's also about building the feedback loops, right? So basically understanding why certain AI outputs were not ideal and fixing that, process and data foundation, and understanding, what context drives valuable users. That is going to be at the core of the foundation for AI to make it like a competitive edge.
Great, thanks, Alexia, for your perspective. And to, I guess, close off our discussion for today, and from what we heard from our panelists today, I feel in the next few years, programmatic has the potential to run itself, but the winners won't be the fastest algorithms. There'll be the teams that are feeding their systems the most cleanest signals on the most effective outcome signals for their clients. The future is about better decisions, not really faster executions. So thoroughly understanding the programmatic ecosystem from the years of experience manually planning and optimizing programmatic investments, these companies will be better placed in directing and utilizing AI most effectively for the next phase of growth and changes in our industry. With that being said, we can move on to some questions from our audience today. So let me just see. So we actually have some questions here from our audience. So then let's go with the first one. What can an agent actually replace? Rona?
Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that one. Good question. So I think it's really from the last section that we were just discussing. So an agent replaces the routine, the repetitive work that sits between you and a decision. So the monitoring you do out of habit, performance checks that you run every morning, or all those tasks that are quietly eating your day and make you lose opportunities. And so maybe you put them off because they're also made too much work, too much overhead. No one wants to do them. These are where an agent, I really think, can come in. And as I said, from my experience, it seems that it's not such a straightforward task to identify and define. So a task really needs to be scoped out end to end so you can explain it to the agent and let them go. So my advice is to really start mapping out those tasks. Write down what your team does repetitively, the checks, summaries that are sent out. This is basically the agent roadmap for you. So the agent takes those repetitive analytical tasks, things that are even like huge data sets that you're like, who can even look into this root cause analysis? They're really good at that, right? You see an anomaly, they can also alert on that, but then what really caused that anomaly? Who can dig into those? So you keep the strategy, you keep the judgment. It's not replacing, it's replacing the parts of the job that no one really misses doing manually. So that's my advice.
Great, thanks, Rona. We have another question from the audience. How do I stop an AI model from overlearning from cheap conversions before higher quality users have had time to retain or monetize? Alexi, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. There are multiple avenues which growth marketer can explore to decrease reliance on early conversions. One of these avenues is using, as we discussed, first-party data to basically teach the AI model well in advance about what users represent value for the brand and what users the model should be trying to find. This helps to basically expedite the learnings and not to optimize towards conversions which might be big in amount but representing lower quality users. Another avenue is basically lies in the platform which you're using in a DSP. That is what we have in Dataseat is the cold start model, so-called cold start models, which learn from your past, from the brand's past campaigns on the users who basically represent value to the brand and basically sends these instructions to the AI to optimize towards kind of those environments and contexts and supply which represent those users. If none of that is available, I think there is not a lot of ways of not using the early conversions, but important here is to understand when to switch. So if there is enough data on the post-conversion actions, let's say on certain down the funnel events, then a human operator needs to instruct the algorithm to switch to optimize into those as early as possible. So the early optimization towards some more cheaper conversion is not necessarily bad. It's just you shouldn't over rely on optimizing towards these events. Once you have enough data to start really optimizing towards the users who drive the actions which represent the longer time value.
Great. Thanks, Alex, for that. We have another question from the audience. As an experienced marketer in programmatic and performance marketing, what key skills should I focus on developing in this day with AI? Well, I can give my 2 cents on this. I think it's as we discussed. Right now, you are probably the best experienced person in the programmatic space because you've manually planned campaigns, optimized campaigns, understand the tech. So you are in a key position to direct what you want from AI. And I think what we discussed here today is the first thing you could do is look at all your repetitive tasks. Can these be automated? So anything that is operational, so either it's analysis, reporting, even ad operations, can easily be developed using AI, which leads to the second part is it spares your time up into thinking more strategically and more of I would say like a consultant basis of now, how do we get the results we want using AI and from the experience of what does good look like and what good doesn't look like. So AI can't understand what's good or bad, but you do. So that will give you far more time to be of a more of a consultative, a strategic role to then develop on those operational agents to build a solution with your tech team or from your side of now how do we make the most of these budgets and KPIs that we're getting from the clients. Any thoughts from Alexei, Rona?
I completely agree with what you said, and it's the things that we're really discussing. So the mechanical skills, pulling the reports, looking at them, checking, these are things that can be moved to agents. And I think as a marketeer, there's experience identifying them and actually doing that. It's not so obvious, and not everyone does that. So that already puts you at a higher level, that you're delegating to agents that work and freeing up your time to focus on things where your judgment can really be more valuable. But I think still looking at results with caution, right? So not just delegating and then letting it go, but also you're that judge of the AI's work. So looking at it, verifying it, improving, tweaking all of this. So look at it as making you superhuman marketeer, but still with your judgment, with your call, because AI can make mistakes. And that's what really, I think will give you that edge, staying still cautious of the things and improving instead of someone that can just take it as take the output and say, okay, that's what the agent says, that's it. That will keep that person less improving the agent's skills and the agent's output. So working with the AI.
I can just add a couple of practical tips. So first, I would encourage everyone, and including the experienced marketers, to learn the basics about AI agents. So as an example, there is a Claude Academy where you can basically go through the whole Claude Cowork certification, basically see the capabilities. and understand how they actually work. What is an agent? What is an LLM? How do these two interact? What types of data do they work with? Can they work with certain spreadsheets? Do they have connectors to certain tools? What tools can be connected, be it an email client, a Google Sheet? So understanding the basics is definitely the first step. And the second practical advice I would give is to create a sandbox environment where you are not afraid to make mistakes and just throw a couple of things to build a simple workflow. Like, okay, I have those two Google Sheets where I need to prepare the report. Start with a simple prompt. Hey, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever you're using, can you build a simple graph which would show me the trend in conversions, as an example, right? And you'll see the output, and from there you can refine the output and or refine the prompt to see another output. And then you can explore the ways, okay, can I upload it to my Google Drive right away? Yes, there is a tool for that, and so on. And by making those baby steps, you'll build more confidence. And I can guarantee that there will be new ideas which spark in your head on what else can I automate when it comes to, day-to-day problems I'm trying to solve and results I'm trying to achieve.
All right. Thank you both for your inputs. I think those are all of our questions from the audience today. So just finishing up our webinar session for today. So it would be great to hear from the audience, how we did. If you could please take the survey that we have for you guys, and also finishing up. So a big thank you again for everyone, our audience, once again for joining this webinar, and we hope it's been informative for everyone. And also a big thank you to our panelists, Alexia and Rona, in sharing their insights and perspective with us today. So thank you, everyone. And we'll be sharing this material out as well. And of course, like I said, it will be also available on our website. But again, if you guys have any more further questions or want to discuss anything, please do reach out to us on our website. We'll be happy to get involved. So thank you, everyone, for today.